one thing that I've really enjoyed about your show lately is you've been calling out fake independent media. And I love that because I haven't been able, like, I felt what you've been saying, but I haven't articulated it in the way that you have. And it really spoke to me because it feels like we're in this weird era where the hope that I had, and this is like, maybe I'm just being too much of a fucking doomer, but, I really felt like independent media was a panacea
Yep.
because corporate media was just dog shit. And it's still dog shit, obviously, but now there's almost, there's like a balance where I think that there's good and bad about independent media, but corporate media, there's also good and bad. Like, you can tune into corporate media and expect somebody to get neoliberal talking points and pro-war talking points, but not necessarily anti-vax talking points.
Right.
Then you tune into, independent media, and you're getting this weird, obscure conspiracy theories and bullshit. And it's so hard because, like, we have big platforms, but at the same time, we don't have the reach as these other people on the right who get a lot of views by pushing raw milk or whatever bullshit trend is the thing that they're going for. So I wanted to ask you about Joe Rogan because you've been going after him, clapping his cheeks, and it's so satisfying because I think that as a former guest of Rogan, you have clout that nobody else has. Like, for me, I'm just some like angry asshole on the internet, but you were on his show, you know him, so they kind of have to listen to what you have to say. So I'm curious, you've been going after Joe Rogan. Talk to what was like the breaking point for you in terms of like, I'm going to attack him publicly. And also let me know, do you think that there's been any response from Rogan? Like, has he reached out? Has any of his fans reached out? Have you shown them the light? Because you've tried so hard to make him see the light and get him to not be reactionary. But I think that ultimately he's just too stupid to be able to not be influenced by people around him. And I have friends like that where, like I knew this one girl, her politics changed based on who she dated. And I feel like that's Rogan, but it's like with his guests. So like, do you think that you've seen any response, or is this kind of you planting seeds and the tree will grow years from now and you'll see maybe a lot of fallen fans in the future? Let me know your take, because I think what you're doing is really important.
So, in terms of whether or not there was a single moment that really opened my eyes, the answer is no. It was just an amalgamation of so many little moments here and there that added up. And then the point where it became just irreparable and pathetic, honestly, is what functionally was the single worst interview of Trump I've ever seen in my life. Like Rogan did a worse job than whoever the biggest hack on CNN would do. Like,
Yeah.
there was nothing substantive. There was nothing difficult. He repeatedly let Trump lie to his face. Literally about stealing the election. He let him go off about that. Trump said, "I never said lock her up," about Hillary. He just sat there and took it. So that was when it was like, okay. And then he came out and endorsed him like right before the election. So it was just so clear, like, you're cooked. Like, you're just a joke at this point. You're just a mess. You don't think about these things seriously. And my issue with Joe is that he's all vibes. Like, everything is vibes based. And so when you have on me and I make good arguments, you nod along in agreement and say that's a great point. But then you have on Ben Shapiro and he makes the exact opposite arguments on every topic and you nod along in agreement and you say that's right. And like, first of all, that logically makes no sense. Like, you're just contradicting yourself. Right. And so there were a bunch of red flags really started to show around the time where he was playing footsie with DeSantis. So it was like, look, everything you say you care about, this guy is disagrees with you. But it was really like, I think COVID was the thing that really made him snap. COVID, he became like a full-on COVID conspiracy theorist, anti-vax kind of guy. And what's so ironic about that is, like, Trump oversaw the lockdowns. Trump did Operation Warp Speed to get us the vaccine. So even according to your own standard, he does it like he would be the last person you should support for president, but he ended up supporting him. So, there was no individual moment in terms of like what happens going forward. I haven't talked to him. He hasn't talked to me. There was a time in the past where we would talk occasionally by text message or whatever. But the last time I probably talked to him was maybe the last time I was on his show. And
Wow.
And I remember there was a time when he thanked me and Crystal because he was getting a lot of shit online because they put together like a compilation of him saying the N-word. And
Mm.
our reaction to that was like, listen, it's not fair because he's quoting other people saying it. It's not like he's calling people the N-word. So it seemed like it was a smear tactic, and we defended him.
Mm.
That's when people were making these videos of him. They put compilations of every left-wing thing he said together, one after the other after the other. Oh, universal health care and free college, and I want to treat trans people equally, et cetera, et cetera. And so we defended him. But now when I look back on those moments, I am embarrassed because all of the critics were right. All the critics who were like, yeah, you started saying right-wing things. You're going to keep saying more and more right-wing things. Eventually, you're going to go full MAGA. His harshest critics from day one were the most accurate. And people like me look dumb for taking him at face value and saying, no, I actually think maybe he is a decent guy. No, I actually think he means what he says when he supports universal healthcare and this, that. Really, you support universal healthcare? You just endorsed the guy who 3 million people lost their health insurance the last time he was in office. You don't care about this at all. It is all vibes. And he surrounds himself with all these right-leaning people from the UFC and other edgy right-wing comedians, and Dana White, who's big-time MAGA. And it's like, you are in an echo chamber and nobody disagrees or tells you the truth. When you're that powerful and rich, you usually are surrounded by yes men. And Rogan is surrounded by yes men who have a right-wing worldview. And so basically, like, my efforts failed. Like, I have no problem saying that my efforts failed. I really did try my best to get through to him, make good arguments, sort of explain it simply. And in the moment he would agree, but then later on he would contradict himself. And then eventually he went full MAGA. So that's also why you see me with the passion that I speak about him now, is because I'm an empiricist. You have to show me, hey, will this work? Will this not work? This didn't work. So then I look at that and go, okay, well, fuck it then. I'm going to do the thing which deep down I feel like is the right thing anyway, which is call out the bullshit aggressively. Shame these people who are arrogantly incorrect about everything they say. And that's why I am where I am now. And that's why you see me be so aggressive, because, I do feel I feel like burned, right? Like, I feel like I tried my best, I failed, and now it's incumbent on me to make clear. Because now you see even like liberal media now, mainstream media is like, oh, maybe Kamala should have went on Joe Rogan. It's like, you guys are missing the fucking point. Like, you're all missing the point.
Yeah.
You're all missing. He's not the same guy he was. There was a time when his audience was like 50-50 left and right. And that's when I was on there. And then it became plus 30 or 40 MAGA, whatever it is now. And it's like, now it's like going to talk to Rush Limbaugh. It's not like, it's not worth it. He's not George Carlin. He's Rush Limbaugh. He's not Bill Hicks. He's Sean Hannity. Right. And so
he's
we gotta call
gone.
that. Yeah, he's gone. We gotta call. We gotta call it what it is, right? And so that's why you see my anger, because if there was gonna be, like, he was a Bernie to Trump pipeline guy, but the idea that those are the people you can target and change their minds, it's not true. All the evidence in the world is you're more likely to flip the liberals, the standard Democrats, or the apolitical independents. Those are the ones who there's an open door where you can really make the arguments and flip them. Maybe you'll get 2% or 3% of like the so-called populist right. But by and large, they're gone, man. And the fact is, they're willing to shove their head in the sand and not acknowledge what we already know about Trump's record. And that's the problem, is like, if I already explained to you all the warmongering, all the anti-worker policies, all the corruption, and you still support Trump, then clearly those things are not a deal breaker for you. And so I'm going to stop wasting my breath on you and go to the liberals, who will probably change their mind, because there's somebody out there right now who's like a Pete Buttigieg stan or a Gavin Newsom stan, or, they have a Kamala picture for their Twitter bio. And it's like, that person is actually persuadable more so than the Joe Rogan types and his audience.
We can save him. Yeah. So in your defense, I don't think that it was stupid. Like, I don't think you look stupid trying to get Joe Rogan to see the light, because even if you can't affect Joe Rogan, I think that process and the arguments that you make for those kinds of people, it still resonates with some members of his audience. And I don't think that, like, I don't know how big of an impact people like us have. I think you certainly have a bigger impact than me, but I think that the minimal impact that we have, that does matter. The few people that we can convince, that does matter. So I think that it's never a wasted effort to try to get people to see the light. One thing that I always try to not be super cynical about people, even though I am very cynical, but I think that what I'm beginning to realize is that you really have to disaggregate like the influencers from just regular people. Like, if somebody is a factory worker who had all of Joe Rogan's beliefs, you can reach that person. Joe Rogan, on the other hand, he's partying it up with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, or he's going to go to Mar-a-Lago or something.
Right.
So you can't reach that kind of a person who lives in a different world than us. He is 100 millionaire. He's not going to be seen. So one thing I will say is when I saw your video of Rogan's interview with Trump, I watched it and I'm like, oh shit, Kyle's not getting that invite back. that bridge is burned.
Yeah, I never cared about that stuff though. That's the thing. Like, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Some people, of course, have conspiracies of like, oh, did Joe burn Kyle, and that's why he's reacting like this, bro? Anybody who knows me will tell you. Even by like the second or third time I went on Rogan's show, I was like, all right, this is cool, but damn, I gotta hop on a plane. Damn, I gotta break my schedule. Like, I am the most schedule-oriented person you've ever met. I'm definitely like on the spectrum, and I'm one of those people where if you change my schedule, I don't like it. I lose it. I'm unhappy with it. I feel out of place. I feel uncomfortable. I don't like it, right? So by the second or third time I went on, it was like, all right, this is cool, but also it's a little bit of a chore. And by the fourth or fifth time, it was like, I've been there, done that. Like, it's not that, like, none of that matters to me in the slight. Like, I couldn't care less about that stuff. So it's funny when people have conspiracy, like, oh, maybe Joe burned Kyle or something behind this. It's like,
that's weird.
Actually, to be fair to him, one thing I will say that's positive about him is most people in this space, if you actually start saying negative things about them and their politics, you might get an angry text message or something. Joe hasn't said shit to me. And that's to his credit, because it's going to fucking land on deaf ears anyway. I'm going to delete the text and I'm going to delete his number and put him on the, don't respond list, right? So credit to him on that front. But look, I guess my point is, moving forward, for me, it's instead of being the, and Destiny makes this point too with his debates with conservatives. He went and debated Ben Shapiro, and in the aftermath, he was like, you know what? I was too conciliatory. There were a number of times where he said things where my response should have been like, you're a fucking idiot, and let me tell you why that's 100% wrong. But instead, he went the diplomatic route of like, oh yeah, I see where you're coming from, but here's how I disagree in this narrow way. And then the thing that people take away watching it is like, I don't know, it seemed like Destiny was more conciliatory than Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro was more clear and strong in his language and his positions, therefore it leaves the impression of like, Ben Shapiro got the best of him, right? And that's how I feel now too, looking back at these conversations. You got to be strong, and you got to be direct, and you got to be clear, and when something's wrong, you got to be like, that's wrong, and here's why that's wrong, as opposed to, oh, I see what you're saying, let me hold your hand and walk you. It's like that. I'm over that because it didn't work.
Yeah.
And I'd rather, and by the way, also Trump's a good example of this too, right? Trump is the most divisive figure in modern American political history. He was talking about Arnold Palmer's dick and immigrants eating cats and dogs, and he won the election. And it's like, people don't, the whole like, oh, I'll meet you halfway or whatever. People don't care. They don't like that. It feels weak. And then here comes Trump like a wrecking ball, like a bull in a china shop, who's like, everybody's wrong about everything. If you disagree with me 1%, you're horrible and irredeemable. And that's why I'm right. And people go, okay, he ended up winning, even the popular vote. And so that self-assuredness and that directness needs to be something that all of us embrace, because to this point, we're always more conciliatory and, oh, hey, I hear you, but think of this. And it's like, no more of that. I'm fed up, bro. I'm done. I'm 36 years old. I feel like I'm 106. It's time to stop any of the tap dancing bullshit and get to the point.
Up yours. Up yours. Up yours.
Sons of bitches.
Woke moralist. Moralist.
I dreamed I saw my maternal grandmother. She was stroking herself absent-mindedly.
I let her have her way.
Her genital region was exposed.
I let her have her way.